Hello, welcome to CBN News. My name is Dan Andros, and we are going to be focusing here on the next few minutes on what people are saying is they're feeling forgotten in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene, and it's been since September 26th, and people are really still struggling. And obviously, we had an election, and things kind of fell off the radar there as far as the national news goes. But there are still incredible needs going on right now, and right now, joining me is Hayley Henson from Operation Blessing, who's been on the ground. And we said this, Hayley, earlier on, right after we talked to Operation Blessing, a day or two after, and you guys were on the ground there. You said we were in it for the long haul, and we're still there working, and there's still so much to do. And we're going to talk about all of that. But before we start, Hayley, I just want to mention to people who join that the need is still so great. And you can donate 100% of the donations that you make to Operation Blessing to help to this cause. Right down there on this YouTube video, you can do that, and you can directly help these people in need. And we'll mention that a few times to remind people as they come in. But Hayley, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me what is going on there. You know, the stories I'm reading when I look at what's happening. I was talking to Justin Jenkins, who's with Operation Blessing, and he was reporting on the ground there last week. And he was at the house of an older couple who had just trees down everywhere, and it was hard for them to even get out, and dangerous trees like kind of dangling over their house and things like that. Roads are still spotty at best. There's so many of them to fix. So he was showing a lot of that, and the people there are saying they feel forgotten. And I know you guys have been there helping as many as you can, but obviously there's thousands and thousands of people there. So it's really sad that that's the sentiment. So can you describe a little bit about what people are facing right now there in North Carolina?
Goodness, yes. As someone that lives here myself, I mean, if you can even look behind me, this is the destruction here in the River Arts District. And most of us are still without potable drinking water. And I mean, now it's been over 50 days that this has taken place. But beyond that, this was such a widespread storm. And so with the hurricane in a coastal city, typically it's a flat grounds and there's the infrastructure to where you can kind of get back and running. Whereas here, it's an Appalachia, a mountain town. And so these hard-hit areas, there were mudslides on top of flooding. There was really disaster that you can't even imagine. And people couldn't even reach their loved ones. And some of them were trapped for over 18 days without the ability to even get access to food, water. In the beginning aftermath, no, we didn't have gas. No one could pay without cash. It was a very strange thing. And now, as time has gone by, as you mentioned, having the big election coming up, it being out of major news cycles, there's still so much left to do. There's still buildings left completely destroyed. There's vehicles in our rivers. I mean, rivers have changed course. The topography has changed forever. And so with that said, not only is this, having its repercussions on the land, but it's having its repercussions on the people here. Again, we still don't have potable drinking water. A lot of people are out of work, and so they're in dire need to have resources. They're not able to make any money because they don't have potable water, and this is very much a community centered on tourism. So people do feel forgotten. Mudslides aren't covered by our insurance, and a lot of people are still waiting for answers from eminent domain and the government to see if they can even rebuild, and they're living in tents. I mean, it's getting colder here. People need generators for tents, and they're on their properties with no answers on whether they can rebuild. And so I think right now, to live in America and not have access to potable drinking water after nearly 2 months, it's concerning. And along with that comes, everyone is preparing for the upcoming holidays, and a lot of people here are just in survival mode. So I don't want to take the stage for too long, but yeah, it's definitely still, sorry, there's a lot of noise around me also because people are still trying to pick up the pieces in the aftermath of all of this, but yes.
Yeah, tell me, I mean, real quick, just tell me about where you're standing there. I mean, this is I mean, that was, I mean, it looks like kind of abandoned at the moment is what it looks like from our view. But
so I'll have David come with me. This is the River Arts District, and this is a cultural epicenter of the area. And Appalachia is known for their makers and their creators. Who's the biggest creator we know? God. And so to see this space where people formerly had, you know, woodworkers, there were creatives, there were artists, and it was all here. The buildings had graffiti on it, but it was kind of this hub of arts, and people from across the globe came here for entertainment and to purchase one-of-a-kind crafts, and it's decimated. I mean, even here, anywhere you look, you're going to find artwork on the side of the road. Luckily, this piece is looking pretty good, but you'll walk around and you'll see mud caked on artwork. You'll see statues that have moved miles down the road. It's something you can't even explain, and it's almost scary to even walk around the riverbeds that were once this place where you got to get away and have respite. The nature was really nice, and now it's anything but calm. It's chaos.
And Hayley, I mean, this is not like 2 days after this happened. I mean, we're almost 2 months after this has happened, and again, this is an area that just, I don't think people ever expected to be dealing with the impacts of a hurricane in that area. So it's just a really, you know, I think in places like Florida, you know, even when there is big damage, like they're used to sort of the hurricane response team, right? They're all kind of, they know what to do. They've been there before. They kick into action. Not there in that area of North Carolina, right? Like this is just uncharted territory. And obviously, as we're 2 months out, just about, and that's what it looks like there. And that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying, oh, it hasn't been that bad since 1960. Now they're saying this is the worst storm in Appalachian history. I mean, when you think about it, there's, you know, the town of Chimney Rock, North Carolina, multiple movies were filmed there. And now I was fortunate to go up in a plane, actually we were in a helicopter to give potable water to people that were completely cut off from the outside world with Operation Blessing. And as we looked over, this town was decimated. You could see homes in the rivers. You saw entire roadways washed away. The mountain roads were gone. I mean, there are still roads you can't get up. There are probably still people that haven't been able to get a hold of loved ones. And something that we don't talk about often with Operation Blessing, but that is obviously a sore subject and so sad, is there were many lives lost in this. And people are still have family members that are missing, that they have no closure. It's been heartbreaking. I mean, in any videos that I'm in, yes, I'm crying and bawling with tears because on a daily basis we're hearing stories from vulnerable populations. I mean, I gave a hug to a woman the other day, and like I was saying, she hadn't spoken to anyone in 19 days. She was in her late 80s, and she couldn't get out of her driveway because the road was completely gone. She was very lucky to even be alive because she didn't have access to food or water for that amount of time. And she told me how she watched her neighbors get swept away in tears. It's so sad. And while they need spiritual hope and restoration, got someone working over here.
Well, that's good. I'm glad somebody is that there is action happening there and that there is a movement.
Yeah.
So they go forward, and we're hearing the beeping. Or I guess they're going backwards right now.
Well, yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, I am glad that they're getting to work here, but in these other areas that aren't cultural hubs and haven't gotten the publicity, small towns like Burnsville, North Carolina, Chimney Rock, Fort Bernardsville, like even the worst of them all, they still don't have help because they're not big towns. So they're left there, So sorry, that was a bit loud.
No, that's okay. I mean, and again, for anybody just joining now, make sure you check out Operation. We'll get into what Operation Blessing is doing right now, but you can donate directly to Operation Blessing and help these people who are saying that they feel forgotten. And all 100% of that is going to go straight to Operation Blessing, and they're there on the ground. We're there for the long haul. And a lot's been made of FEMA, and you have reports now, people saying that they're being told when they ask for federal funding, they're being told, some of them, that the money's sort of run out. They don't have any more money for that right now. What are you hearing on the ground there of people about like the federal government and what's been done, what hasn't been done? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, speculation and news and incorrect reports, but true reports. So what are you hearing as far as what people are saying to you about the aid from the federal government?
As you've said, there's a lot of speculation, and I can only speak, I'm obviously a journalist as well. And so I believe unbiased, information, but I'm going to speak directly from what I've heard from the very people that I've interviewed. And at the beginning, there were homeless people living in tents that had reached out to FEMA and just trying to get $700 when their homes washed away, their vehicles washed away. And unfortunately, $700, it doesn't cover that, being homeless or unhoused. And I think the other thing is now finally people are starting to hear from FEMA, but the amount that they're able to provide isn't going to cover their major losses. So one man who's like, yes, finally FEMA got back to me. You have to be, they need the help. Obviously there's so many people from surrounding areas that need help from FEMA, and they don't have enough workers to answer the phone. So people are waiting on the line. I mean, because I'm on these local pages, and people are waiting online for like 4 hours just to hear. And they're like, well, you just got to keep it on for 4 hours to get through to FEMA. And then once you do, one man, his basement, this is a man that we helped with Operation Blessing. He has cancer, really wonderful man, retired fire chief, has all of his grandkids are living with him at the moment while they're building a home. And the basement completely flooded. Well, FEMA was able to provide them some resources, but it made a dent in what they really needed. And so people are having to I don't know what they're having to pull from their own reserves. And a lot of Americans don't have a spare $500 in case of emergency. So when you think about people that are already struggling financially, this is a city where a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. And now you have major infrastructure down. They can't pay their bills. They can't get a hold of FEMA. And so, a lot of people are fortunately able to get those housing vouchers, but they're saying until December. It's every day there's new information coming up. And I can't say from personal experience because I haven't gotten anything from FEMA, but from the point of view from a lot of people, they have a lot of costs that are coming up that just unfortunately aren't covered.
Yeah, that's quite frustrating. And, and just speaking anecdotally, personal experience, it can be very frustrating dealing with insurance companies at times. I often think of the movie The Incredibles when he's working for the insurance company. Like, what are you doing? You can't give people the money. And it feels like that sometimes because they're like, well, that was not covered. And you're like, oh, okay. So I can imagine how frustrating that is because you're like, you think a hurricane in North Carolina would be kind of one of those events that's covered, but there's always a way, it seems, for them to get out of it, but that's just me on the soapbox.
You don't have hurricane insurance in North Carolina. A lot of these places they say weren't floodplains, and I didn't mean to interrupt earlier, but one thing that I'm hearing from a lot of people, and this, gosh, it just breaks my heart. Another man, his name's Tom, and he had a home and it completely washed away, and he lives in Swannanoa, North Carolina, and he just broke down in tears to me, and he said, everything I worked for my entire life just washed away. And it makes you want to cry because not only that, they lost their son and everything that reminded them of their son was in that home, and insurance hasn't gotten back to them, and they're living with a neighbor. It's been 2 months.
Yeah.
At what point are these people going to get to have normalcy?
Yeah. And if you're just joining us now, I see a bunch of people have come on, and I appreciate that. We're talking about how the people in North Carolina, and we've got Hayley Henson there from Operation Blessing in North Carolina. And the people there, the story that I'm seeing is they're feeling forgotten, right? And that's why Operation Blessing's been there. And that's why it's so great to support Operation Blessing because, you guys, if you follow their channel on their YouTube channel, Crutch, I don't know if you can, or somebody can drop that in the link here, but they'll do a lot more just showing you what's going on and how they're helping. And I want to talk about that in just a second about like where you guys are seeing how you're helping the most, what's the most common thing y'all are doing. But I just want to sort of toot your horn there on Operation Blessing because when you watch them interact with people, it's much more than you'll ever be able to get from a federal agency or even a state agency, because you guys are out there praying with people, you're sharing the love of Christ with people. And as far as the tangible needs, they obviously need that, but they obviously also need the spiritual as well. And so Operation Blessing provides that. So, make sure if you're feeling led to donate, you can do that right on this video there. There's a link to 100% of those proceeds are going to Operation Blessing. YouTube does not take a cut of these designated fundraisers. So you can donate with confidence there. But Hayley, tell me about what you guys are kind of finding yourself engaged in the most at this particular point in time on the ground there in North Carolina.
Real quick, really love what you said about, the spiritual restoration that Operation Blessing has been able to provide, just because sometimes it's just a hug or can I pray for you that can bring someone out of that darkness and that despair and restore that hope in a time of hopelessness. So thank you for mentioning that. But, Operation Blessing, gosh, what have they not done at this point? And I'm saying that as someone that actually couldn't have had a meal, I was only able to shower through Operation Blessing. Literally Operation Blessing helped me. I wouldn't have been able to get out of that first couple of weeks until I get my feet, from under me without Operation Blessing. But at this time, Operation Blessing started out by giving potable water, bringing out meal boxes that feed a family for up to 5 days. And we gave people potable water. We went out into the communities that were hard hit, especially those that are in lower socioeconomic situations that didn't really have access. We went to them. And so that in the coming days, we gave them, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, water, anything that you can, anything to help with shelter, by giving them a generator, or how can we help you set up your tent? Then it went into the process of, okay, what can we do to help with restoration long term? And right now we have partnered with some of the people here in River Arts District, and we've cleaned out the space, mucked and gutted a lot of people's residential homes and cleaned up debris and got those trees out of the way so that they could get out of their homes and kind of start anew and start fresh. But something that we're doing that's really been big for me is here in the River Arts District, there's a woodworking business with over 20 different makers, and their families can't feed themselves right now. And so we've cleaned out their building, and we're going to be creating this commercial sized tent for these makers to continue making so that they can continue to build our economy in this area and also provide for their families. And in turn, they may be making some things to put in the homes that we will be building with Excel College. So we, at this point, are going to be building over 175 homes. That's huge. I mean, to be able to put 175 people, we say Maslow's hierarchy of needs, providing shelter, food, water. There we are with housing opportunity. And we're also talking to some other people about providing, completely outfitting these homes with furniture. We're working with, we're in talks with a couple of different people at this time, so I can't say for certain some of the things we're doing, but we are going to be building homes. We're going to be able to help these makers to start making again. We've already helped with muck and gutting, removing debris, and giving food, water, and the biggest, prayer support. Gosh, let me tell you, I feel that we help people, but even for me, we went out the other day to this woman, Linda's house, and she started singing How Great Thou Art to all of us, and we all broke out in tears. And it's just been amazing to see the restoration of God's love. It's almost been like a baptism of the city. It's been heartbreaking, but to see that spiritual, nature and God coming back into the lives of so many when they feel forgotten has just probably been one of the most beautiful things that I've been able to encounter with Operation Blessing. So, and one last thing, and then I'll be quiet. The international team, gosh, we were trying to cover this storm because it hit from Florida all the way to Tennessee. And the international team came from all over. I'm talking Chile, Spain. David, who's from Spain, is holding this phone for me right now. We've had so many people that have been so instrumental. Diego, he's come down here and he helps with our operations. Jorge, I mean, I'm telling you, people from across the globe with Operation Blessing have come here to help with Hurricane Helene. And I can't tell you how much it's meant to me. They're in war-torn countries. They've seen the worst of the worst, and they came here to the United States so that we didn't feel forgotten. And to see our teams working together globally for restoration has probably been one of the most beautiful things to witness in my lifetime of working with anyone.
Yeah.
So that's just been beautiful.
No, that's really great. And it's funny because on the one hand, like, I'm really inspired by that, and on the other hand, I'm frustrated by it because of, you know, for whatever reason, like we've been talking about, people feeling forgotten, and initially there was a sort of an outpouring, right? But then it's like it's kind of fizzled, and you know, like you said, with the election, everything else going on, so people are feeling forgotten. Maybe with FEMA, the issues there, and you know, and I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of all that. What's going on with people either not getting money or them saying the money has run out. I mean, those stories will come out in the days and weeks to come. But, you know, it's frustrating. So that's the frustrating side of it, that, you know, you would hope that there would be so much more support coming in so that people like Diego wouldn't have to come from halfway across the globe to come and help. But I mean, me personally, like you said, I'd rather have Operation Blessing there than anyone else for the reasons you stated. But it is frustrating, and I think it's frustrating to, like you said, a lot of the people on the ground there, that it has to have come to that, right? Because of the great need there, and then it just falling off the national scene. And you know, I know that there's some, you know, I was reading some quotes from some of the politicians there in North Carolina, and they're trying to get more money secured, and they think it's going to take a few $1 billion to help finally kind of clean things up. But like you said, like, people are just dealing with crazy things that they never had to deal with before. Yeah. These are people that it's already a tough economy, right? And I read a quote from someone who said that they're paying $130 a month for a portable toilet because obviously their whole place is wrecked, and, you know, you can't go to these are just simple things you don't think about. You don't have your house, like, you have nowhere to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's just
that was hard.
Yeah. So I mean, people are dealing with stuff they never thought they would have had to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get to use the bathroom at my own home for over 18 days. And now I still can't drink any water. I'm hoping and praying that, you know, that water restoration is going to happen. I know they're working really hard. And you're right. I mean, there was an outpouring of support. I mean, the mountain people here are tenacious. And you saw a lot of churches coming together, a lot of faithful people. And I know a lot of people want to help, but there also was red tape that prevented helping. You know, there's so much that you have to wait for approval on to even begin to help. And it's going to take a lot of resources to do this. You know, a lot of people don't have the money to stay here. And that's why these, you know, humanitarian organizations like Operation Blessing, a lot of them are going to fizzle out if they don't have the resources to be able to stay for longevity. And that's also because, again, we're waiting for answers. How do you start to rebuild if you're not allowed to rebuild? You know, there were people that, you know, didn't listen to the government, and they went out there and they built a bridge out of a tractor trailer just so people could leave their homes, you know?
Yeah.
And you're seeing things, and that's not technically illegal, but the people needed to leave so that they could get out. And now you're seeing, I even talked to firefighters, the fire chief from Swannanoa, they call him the unofficial mayor. And he was saying, like, we want to help, but they won't let us remove certain cars from the rivers yet unless we do it this way. And now that was a couple weeks back, and I don't know how that's changed now, but things still look bad. It still looks like a third world country. And
what is the road situation? Sorry to interrupt, Hayley, but what's the road situation like? I mean, I know we saw all those videos of, like, roads just washed out on the mountainside, and I mean, you can't just throw those back together. No. There's grading that has to happen. There's, you know, retaining walls. There's all this stuff. So what is it like driving around there right now? Is it still really difficult to get around? Have the main roads been patched up? Like, what's the situation with that?
Well, first and foremost, the new first responder is a grader. I like how you mentioned that. And that truly is, the other day I went out to this one property, and the road was like halfway cut off, and it said Highway 9 closed off. Now, we were still able to get out that way, luckily, but there are still entire bridges that are collapsed. There are still people. I mean, this was a very sad situation. The man broke his back, and his house literally came down the mountainside. And so we were cleaning up all the debris, but we had to park our cars out because we couldn't even go that far and bring our supplies to help, get all of the debris and remove it and organize it so that he could even begin to restart his life anew. But yeah, there are still major roads down. The traffic has increased exponentially because you have first responders still here trying to help, and then there's only a few roads that are open. Even just a typical, trip to the store, you can't do that. You can't go to TJ Maxx for your Maxxinista finds because those roads are still completely washed off, and there's still tractor trailers and cars flipped upside down. I mean, and then again, like you said, the infrastructure and Chimney Rock, no one can get to Chimney Rock because the roads are gone.
Yeah. I was just going to ask about like Amazon. I mean, that's something we all kind of take for granted, right? Everyone's ordering multiple Amazon packages a week. A lot of us are anyway. I mean, not that I do that, but I mean, even just something like a convenience like that. I mean, I'm assuming that's probably massively hindered, if not completely gone at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I canceled my Amazon a couple of months ago because I was like, I'm not going to be as big of a consumer. But I will say that is something that I recognized at first. I was like, how are people going to get their packages and stuff? I think the most difficult thing in the immediate aftermath was there were people that had diabetes and needed insulin, and they couldn't refrigerate it, and they couldn't get out to go get it. And so a lot of people were trying to figure out even to get their medications and stuff like that. And that's serious. I mean, one of our friends left town immediately. As soon as it hit, he was trying to go somewhere, and this police officer said to him, "Sir, you can't leave." And he said, "Sir, I'm a diabetic. If I don't get my medicine, I could die." And that's immediately he grabbed his child and his wife, and they left town. And this was a story for a lot of people. But if you don't have the money or the funds to be able to pay for that hotel room, and you don't get FEMA aid right off the bat, what do people like that do? This is really opening the narrative and seeing the bigger scope of things, that those that are already struggling are going to struggle the worst. Yeah. And it's a devastating situation, but luckily we do have, people like Operation Blessing that can step up and help people in need. But the thing is, the need is so widespread. Yeah. So we need help. We really need help. And we want normalcy. We want to get excited for the holidays too. We want to have something to look forward to. Even looking on, for a little respite to go online and look at other people's lives, it makes you kind of sad because your life isn't normal.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm hearing that. What is that? What are they working on right behind you there? Because I can hear the banging.
Finally. So I'm so happy to see this because they're finally compacting these buildings and all of this right here. This is a debris pile. We can come this way a little bit, but over here, this is the first time, just last week on Friday, first time in almost 2 months that I finally saw trash getting put away.
Wow.
And so where is it going to go? I don't know. I mean, as someone that also loves the environment, that's scary as well. But I think, yeah, I mean, he's finally putting some of that debris. And if you look over here, I mean, anywhere you walk, you're going to find a piece of debris.
I mean, again, Hayley, this is 2 months. I mean, this is 2 months after this storm, and you've got random debris sitting out there. I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, I'm going to let you walk with me a little bit more. I mean, speaking of infrastructure, this is a sidewalk. This was a famous, I'll shoot down a little bit. This was a famous barbecue spot. People came to come here. It was great. People loved it, but this was completely washed away.
Yeah.
Over here, this was Summit Coffee Shop, a place that I like to work from, and it's completely destroyed. This was underwater. It was 20 feet. I mean, we'll come look over here, 20 feet high is how high that this went up. And you just see, everywhere you look, there's always something on the ground. Meat, sleep, 12 bones. I mean, spare person's hat. It's eerie. Anywhere you look, I think it's eerie. It's scary to even walk around rivers.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're gonna find.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you're going. It's like one of these videos where you're like, "Hey, look at this town that's been abandoned and nobody's seen it." That's what it feels like when you're walking through it, and which is crazy again after 2 months, because you would expect in a lot of places that get hit by these things, more regularly? Like, yeah, there's damage, but like people are back out and they're out doing things, and it just seems like, man, they've just been hit so hard there.
Yeah, I mean, when I came home the first night, I live on Biltmore Avenue. Biltmore Village it's a nicer area, and it was completely destroyed, and that's where the Vanderbilt, that big Biltmore estate was. And so a lot of people and tourists came in that way. And that day, when it first happened, no one can get a hold of anybody, and the lights were flashing on the streets up and down. I felt like I was in the movie, I Am Legend or something. And there was no cars. I could park on the street. Everybody had left town. Everyone was gone. There was water raging, like next to a Mexican restaurant that I knew of and I used to frequent. Everybody was gone. It was like a ghost town. It was eerie. And then the police would come through and their lights would be flashing. They'd say curfew at, 7:00 p.m. tonight. I'm 35 years old and I'm being told that I have a curfew because they were afraid. It was like, I can't even describe it. I go to disaster zones for a living. That's what I do. I'm a media representative. I go to disaster zones. But when you live in one and you're in a mountain town, it's something I'm still processing. It's been traumatic. Yeah. And I feel trauma from anyone that I interview when I'm out on the road. But like the fact that I used to come here, and now you look inside. I mean, I'll show you. You look inside and this was one of the most famous, barbecue restaurants in town.
Jeez. It's been abandoned for like decades is what it looks like right now.
Full of water. And here they mucked and gutted, but you can still feel in the water here. You'll see trees and branches in every building. And we helped an antique dealer clean out his place, and it was so sad. He had pieces from all over the globe. He lost over $1 million. He lost his home too. Not only did he lose his business, but it's like, and this was a man that did it all on his own. And the people that worked here, they don't have jobs. They were forced to leave. But it's strange because you walk around these buildings and you see where there once was life, and you can smell the stench of just the river and in fact, we should probably leave this building. It's probably a little unsafe, but I mean, yeah, it's unreal, and it's been two months, and this is our reality now.
Hayley, somebody commented in, someone named Kathy commented and said she just returned from Spruce Pine with my church group, feeding the residents and first responders in the surrounding communities. The devastation is heartbreaking, she said. And I'm not familiar with Spruce Pine. Perhaps you can fill me in here in a second, but I do want to just acknowledge the people that are donating. Thank you so much for that. You can donate directly on this video to Operation Blessing. Hayley and the team of our international team, we're there. We're committed for the long term. And your donation goes to keeping them there. I mean, like Hayley was saying, these people are feeling forgotten. They're feeling like the national media has moved on from them. And as you can see, where Hayley is in places around, it's just still completely, utterly devastated. And it's not the time to be giving up on and moving on from these people here that are in desperate need. So I'm not familiar with Spruce Pine, Hayley. What's the situation there?
So, Spruce Pine's a smaller community. It's like the Burnsvilles and Spruce Pines. They're these surrounding communities outside of Asheville. Asheville was like the epicenter. It was known in North Carolina, but there's all these really quaint mountain towns where, speaking of being forgotten, they feel passed over. I mean, so much media attention's been on Asheville, but it's these smaller towns that surround us that have so much character and have people that have lived there for a long time that they're not really getting as much help. And so we have organizations like ourselves. We went out to Burnsville, but there's only so much that you can do. We've sent out big teams of volunteers, which are the heart and soul of what we do. But Spruce Pine, I haven't even gotten to check it out myself because it's been so widespread. I've been to Burnsville. I've done the Chimney Rock. Swananoa was really bad, and it was a really small town. But what's so crazy about this storm is that it was, like I said, the widespread, like how it hit everyone. It's like when we went over Chimney Rock, you saw where these high speed winds went over the trees, and it completely just brought them down. The orchards completely brought down. This one family, they said, we wanted to run up the mountain, but the water was rising and we were afraid the mountain was going to come down. Can you imagine being in a location where you can't even escape because you have danger from above you and below you? And I don't know. For me, I just think that's what's been so sad. Here in Appalachia, we refer to anywhere where a creek is or a river bed that's kind of in the middle of the mountain. It's called a holler. And hollers were an Appalachian term for like where people would have their homesteads and where people chose to live because it was beautiful and it was calm and peaceful. Well, those hollers became a horror story. That's what's happened. And it's everywhere. To Tennessee, it's everywhere. I mean, around us.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very heartbreaking. And, I was just going to add that you talked about it being widespread. And according to the reports I'm seeing, more than 100,000 homes were damaged or completely destroyed by Hurricane Helene across western North Carolina. 100,000 homes is a ton of homes.
Yeah, it's so sad. And I think beyond the thousands of homes, it's also the loss of life that the numbers still aren't out there. They're saying, it's the loss of life. It's the vulnerable populations. And we're far from seeing the impacts of this storm. Businesses that weren't touched by water and didn't, have a landslide or mudslide, they're still going to close down because they haven't had water. And so the economic devastation that this is going to cause is going to be long lasting. And unless we have people come out and help, it's going to be hard to rebuild without the help and faith of other people.
All right. CBN's Dan Andros here. I am joined by Hayley Henson from Operation Blessing. She is in North Carolina right now in Asheville, and that is still the scene that you're seeing around where she is standing right now, where it's still almost 2 months after this hurricane came through and surprised many by hitting an area that just doesn't get hit a lot with hurricane damage. It's just a very, very rare thing. And you can see they don't have sort of the hurricane infrastructure in place that, like we talked about, like a place like Florida, where they're sort of, able to sort of, they've got all these practices and protocols in place for hurricanes because they get hit with them a lot. Well, it doesn't happen in this area of North Carolina. And so, people came in and they helped, and then many of them are gone. And Operation Blessing committed to be there for the long term. And you can help them do that. I would strongly encourage you to, if you want to help people in North Carolina that feel that they've been largely forgotten, and not only just help with the physical needs that Hayley's been talking about, but she also talked about how they provide the spiritual need as well, which we know as Christians is super important. Even more than any physical need, but obviously these emergent physical needs are critical. And, we don't want to see this community fall apart. We don't want to see this community go by the wayside. And as we talked about earlier, many of them frustrated with their insurance companies or FEMA or the federal government, the state government not providing enough. And it's just, when you see a lot of the other things that are being funded, I think people have a hard time with that, right? Like if you see, and not to get into the political nature of it, I'm just saying what it looks like to the people there. They see these funds going to all these other things, and they pay taxes just like the next person. And when it comes to them, then they get skipped over. I mean, you can't help but, feel a little bit slighted by that. But again, these people are fantastic. I mean, like I said, I saw Justin Jenkins interviewing a woman named Linda up in one of the mountain areas up high up in the woods. And she just had great faith in the midst of all this and talking about God's sovereignty and trusting in God in the midst of this. So you've got a lot of people of faith in this area as well who are, and I know you said you were uplifted by a lot of just how you were seeing people respond to that too, Hayley. So there's a lot going on here.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't talk from the political aspects. All you can do is just not live in fear and pray that God's people come together and help to bring restoration and hope and love to those that have lost so much. And I've already seen it and I've witnessed it. And there's been times when I've been down. I mean, this is hard. It's traumatic and it's very traumatic and it's emotional. And every day you're hearing, I don't want to cry because I cry a lot, but every day you're hearing stories of loss and you want to help. Gosh, I said I wouldn't cry. And it's hard. It's like, how do you feel like it's a drop in the bucket for what you can really do, because a lot of these people don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
And these are your neighbors and they live here in the United States and and we're very blessed to live in the US. And I think it also opens up our eyes to like me not having water the amount of time that I did. There's children across the globe that haven't had water their entire lives. So how lucky am I to live in the US where at least I know restoration is going to come and we have organizations like Operation Blessing. But I think it's hard because you see these people hurting and you want to do everything that you can. And I think that's why I'm not on the operational side, because I'd be like, here, give me that money here. I would just give it to everybody.
Yeah.
But
no, that is very tough. And I know you're from that area, so it hits extremely close to home for you as well. But it is when you see people in need like that, and especially we talked about 100,000 homes, right? Like you just know you can't yourself help everyone, and that's a tough feeling, right? That really forces us actually to really get on our knees and pray, because it's times like that where you realize that no, I'm really not in control of my life. Like God is in control. And so it's a humbling feeling to feel that. And it's tough to feel that when you have to see it and realize that in a situation like this with so many people hurting, and there was so much loss of life as well because of that. I mean, you just can't even imagine the horror of some of these things we've heard where people, had a loved one slip right out of their hands because of the water, raging water. I mean, just how do you overcome that? But, by the grace
Did
of God.
Did you hear about the little boy who yelled out for Jesus?
Yes.
And I think it was that story that I think about. Here this little boy is maybe 5 or 6 years old, and he calls out to Jesus when I heard that story and I watched it, I just cried my eyes out. Not only did this woman lose her parents, but she lost her son. But I think he had the answer, I know he had the answer. You cry out to Jesus and you ask, please God, because I'm not in control. And you give that power to God. I mean, it's so funny. As I say this, here we have an Operation Blessing person walking by in one of our shirts, and that they're directed by the Holy Spirit. They're directed by God to be here and help people. And that's all you can do is really lean on your faith and just pray,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Hayley Henson with Operation Blessings, thanks so much for, spending some time and just giving people some more information on what's going on there, because this has dropped off the radar and we're going to keep on this. I really want to push this and push the help for the people of North Carolina. So we've got our fundraiser going here for the next few days up until I think through Thanksgiving. And so I would love to have you back on again, perhaps later in the week. We can talk about some things going on. We can talk about some of these issues that we talked about today, but I would strongly encourage everyone watching here, like and subscribe to this channel. We're going to do more live streams on this, and we'll talk to Operation Blessing, people like Hayley who are there. They can show us what's going on. And you can donate right here through YouTube, 100%. YouTube does not take a cut. 100% of it is going to Operation Blessing. And we would love to really smash that goal and really go by it, because like we talked about, Operation Blessing is committed to be there long term when a lot of places can't commit to that, and they have to go, or they have other needs that they're going to go to, or they just decide to leave for whatever reason. But Operation Blessing wants to be there, and we have committed to being there as long as we can possibly be there. So we need your help to do that. So please consider donating to Operation Blessing, because you're not only providing for those physical needs, you're definitely providing for spiritual needs as well. So Hayley Henson, I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you so much for putting this out there and letting the public know your voice is so important, and we so appreciate you here in Western North Carolina. You're doing so much work for us just by continuing to make this relevant in people's lives.
Amen. All right. Well, if you don't mind, Hayley, I would like to pray together before we go. So this is something we always do, especially on videos like this, where prayer is absolutely our number one line of defense. So if I'll start it off, and then if you wouldn't mind finishing it, that would be great.
Okay.
All right. Heavenly Father, just thank you so much for this day, for the things we take for granted so many times, the air in our lungs, the roofs over our head. And I'm just thankful today for Hayley and for Operation Blessing team, that they're there and meeting the needs of people in dire need there in North Carolina. And I would just pray that you would move in the hearts of people to help in any way they can, whether it's being there and donating their time, volunteering their time, or if it's donating funds and whatever the way it is, or if it's praying, which we know is incredibly powerful, and we know prayer works. So we're thankful for your sovereignty. We know even in the midst of a fallen world here, where we have things like devastating storms and death and suffering, we know that you are in control of this all, and you're working all things together for the good of those who love you. And so we trust you, and we love you, and we lift all these things up to you.
And Father God, I just ask that you continue to be that light in darkness, and thank you for Dan and for allowing him to use his voice for good. God, I ask that you continue to restore the hearts of those that have been impacted by this storm. I ask that you continue to use Operation Blessing and all of those that feel called to come out here and help us to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to bring your word and your hope to those that don't know you, and to allow us to continue to provide the aid that we need and the support that we need, so that we can continue to share your light, your love, and help those that are hurting in the aftermath of this devastation. Father God, help us to be the tools that you need us to be. Help us to walk with you in everything that we do, day in and day out. On your behalf, thank you for all that you do, and please bless those less fortunate than ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I really appreciate it. And, stay safe out there, and we'll continue to pray for you guys, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you so much, Dan. Have a blessed day. We appreciate you.
All right. Take care. And
thanks. Bye-bye.
And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And for donating as well. And again, I would strongly consider just help out. If you want to help out and you want to be the hands and feet of Christ, go ahead and, give to Operation Blessing. You will not regret that. They do amazing work, and they're bringing the gospel along with it. So God bless you all for being here, and stay tuned for the next update in a few days on this one.